And the truth is, you face the music. And when you face the music, well,
as I say, two wrongs never make a right.
Yes.
Never makes a right. Okay, still on Nigerian Tribune, two Edo local government chairmen impeached. Okay, want to know reasons, and now you'll find details on page 28 of Nigerian Tribune. It's still on the Nigerian Tribune on page 2. Niger Delta stakeholders writes Tinubu, one of looming crisis over oil blocks licensing. All right, that detail, as I said, is on page 2 of Nigerian Tribune. And the Tribune still has the story. Northern groups laud federal government's effort in tackling insecurity in the region. You find details of that on page 3 of Nigerian Tribune. And also this one, on the government set to amend chieftaincy declaration of traditional stools. Find details of that on page 28 of Nigerian Tribune. And finally, from the Nigerian Tribune, Tinubu's renewed hope agenda will make Nigeria greater. There's conference of 57 chairman, as Alabi says. You find says presidents this demand. Okay, you find details of that on page 12 of the Nigerian Tribune. And on page 7, federal government unveils key changes in withholding tax regulations, says Oyedele, as Peter Obi proceeds here. Nigeria's situation worsening daily, says Obi. And right up to that says, wants cuts in frivolous spending, 6, increased education funding, security, health, poverty alleviation. Peter Obi is modern day doomsayer, rehearts APC, says Tinubu's economic policies working. Alright, details of that argument for and against you find on page 3 of Nigerian Tribune. That will be it.
Alright, now from Nigerian Tribune, let's move to the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. On the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, you have some stories making headlines there. We start with this: food crisis 5 months after FG yet to implement duty waiver. You find details on the front page, of course, speeding into the inner pages of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Wike is in the news. Let's check the story there. Wike allocates 10 billion naira for rent, furniture to Akpabio, Abbas, to others. You find details on page 3 of Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Of course, it took this at the time Obasanjo and PCL disagree over refineries. You can find details in the Daily Trust newspaper as well. Let's check this one. How 140 policemen died in FCT in 2024. That's come from the Commissioner of Police there. That's sad one. Get details of the story right there. Presidency mom as Obi hits Tinubu on State of Nation. Find that on page 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper. I think the APC was the one that was responding. The presidency is not saying anything yet on the matter. Subscribers reject telecom tariff hike plan. You find details. I think there's need for anger management. Many things would make you to want to lose your cool. But you see, no matter how daunting the economic challenge might be, no matter how harsh the atmospheric condition might also look like in the economic arena and many other areas, I think
The provocation, because
it's important to keep your cool. Because when you do, you save yourself of the potential of losing your freedom um, from pulpit to prison. That's
imagine. Actually, the crossover service is usually marked by rowdiness, you know, in most congregations, especially in churches that are in the heartbeat of towns and cities across Nigeria. It's been a while because the knockouts, the sounds, the hula baloo that is created just because we're crossing over. But
well, I think there's a flip side to the matter, Shadi. We must be honest. You see, while we address the anger management deficiency on the part of the should I call him gentleman still, gentleman cleric, I think it's important we tell the truth to everyone, especially the security agencies. It will not be the first time you're hearing from the police in particular saying, we are outlawing the use of banger, we are outlawing the use of knockouts, we are outlawing the use of these during festivities and all of that. But what happens eventually? You still hear the bangs everywhere, and you see, the anyhowness of the Nigerian people always amazes me each time issues like this crop up. I think it's important to respect our laws. Nigeria is not in the want of laws. We have so many of them. But the implementation of sin is our problem. And it's also somehow not the fault of the security agencies. You find undue interference and infiltration of political elite in the discharge of the duties of the security operatives. That's when somebody will say, no, he's a member of my ward, he's a member of my political party, and all of those things. He's the son of Chisososo or Senator or this or House of Reps that. It makes no sense. When the law does not have its course, you have all of these problems on our hands. So until and except we are able to implement our laws with the mindset of no matter whose ox is God, be you the president's son, you run foul of the law, you get a boot. That is when we can really say that something is going on.
Maybe we should cut the security agents of slacks too. The proportion of security agents to citizens, you know, is quite not proportionate, as they often say.
Another factor?
Yes, another factor there. So maybe the crossover situations like the crossover night could be overwhelming to security agents, because how many places, how many churches, or worship centers, or pubs will they be?
No, you're not getting my point, Chadi. My point is this. Has it been there has been consequences for actions and inactions?
Okay, some would have taken a clue.
Of course. It could have served as a deterrent to others who have the recalcitrant nature to our laws. They're incorrigibly disobedient. And so when they see that such incorrigibility will be met with consequences by our laws, nay, security agencies who would do the needful in ensuring punishment for those who run foul of the law, then those people who have the blocked air will know that they should go and look for cotton board and then clear the clogs in their ear, so that they're able to really understand what to do and what not to do per time. Otherwise, we'll keep having this problem.
I understand you. And then lastly on that, parents too need to wake up to their responsibilities of raising children that are obedient, because I know that priest must have announced that please do not come close to this church with bangers and whatever view to disrupt services. You know, there was an instance where I was in the congregation and banger was thrown into the church on crossover night, you know, into an elderly man's agbada, and the man kept rolling on the floor, and they think, you know, oh, come on, the causing, that's not good. Instead of blessing.
I'm being careful not to respond the way it's coming to my mind when you talk about parents. I wanted to ask if there are still parents.
Oh.
Because these are days when parents abdicate their responsibilities and then transfer sin to their children, just because such child is now bringing one or two things home. As old as you might think I am, my father still scolds me. And there are things I still dare not do because I will look at it as if my father should hear.
Yeah,
And that's a father, that's a parent, not the kind of what you find in many places where the father cannot talk to the son again because of what? Just because he's bringing whether legal or illegal money to the house. When daughters can no longer respect their mothers just because they now have turned to be breadwinners, illicit bread, illegal bread that they bring home, that they cannot
bread.
that they cannot proudly say that this is the work I am doing, and because of that, parents lose
their regards.
Their regards. So that's why I was almost tempted to ask if I see parents. We must understand that no matter what is happening, we still, like the elders will say, it cannot get to such a worse situation that you now walk with your head. No, you will still walk with your head.
All right, and finally from the punch is this one. OT bans school levies, approves monthly allowance for principals. That's the governor of Abia State, Alex Oti, has banned all forms of payments in primary and secondary schools in the state, marking the enforcement of compulsory school attendance for children of school age. Wow, I'll say that's the most beautiful news for today.
Well, beautiful, but then I think it's a lesson. And I dare say that the Ondo State government has a whole lot of things to also learn from that. It's not enough for the Commissioner for Education, Science and Technology in Ondo State and in many other states to come out and say, look, you cannot collect more than they approved and all of that. The monitoring mechanism is important to be placed. Apart from the monitoring mechanism, the incentive to also give you the enablement to criminalize infractions to those instructions, they're also important. Now, you as a principal, you have your allowance. If you go ahead and then you collect illegal levy, you know you're on your way out already.
The incentive is already there. So
Do you understand what I'm saying now? For instance, you are my wife, I gave you money to cook, you have everything, and I'm coming home, I'm not meeting food. If I'm hungry, I think I have the right to be. So, but if as government, I'm not giving you incentives, I'm not paying your salary as and when due, and then I am telling you not to take illegal fees and all of that, then it might be difficult for me to enforce such directive. So what I'm saying is, when government does its part, laws, regulations, directives, rules and regulations become easier to follow. So I think government at all levels, I mean at cross states, must learn from that step.
That's a good one coming from Alice Oti there. All right, and finally, have you taken the Daily Trust?
Of course,
Daily Trust. The Daily Times. Okay.
All right, let's check the Daily Times. I think that there might be one or two stories of interest there. And on the front All right, that does it with a check on stories making headlines in the national dailies. What exactly has been the development in the education sector, especially looking at the past year, 2024, and projecting into the new year, 2025? We'll be joined by a foremost educationist and professor. Please join us after this break. We'll be back. Welcome back, everyone. Of course, I did tell you that we will be looking at the Nigerian education sector in retrospect. I'll be joined this morning by Professor Mrs. Christiana Ijagwemi FNSC. She is the Director, Center for Gender Issues in Science and Technology, Federal University of Technology, Akure Futa. Good morning. Happy New Year.
Good morning.
Well, I think we should start from a look at the issue of gender in education generally. Many people talk about access to education and they view the female gender as disadvantaged in access to education. But another school of thought disagree because education in recent time is becoming more accessible to everyone, irrespective of the gender coloration. Or what do you think?
Thank you. You said in recent times. But let's look at some years back. You know, the female gender have been sort of disadvantaged culturally, religiously, and then just you see even secularly, even in the family setting, you always have a preference for the male child, you know, as compared to the girl child, and families will always want to invest on the male child, believing that the girl child will eventually end up, you know, in marriage and such, you know, will be embedded or engraved by husband's whatever. Let me just say, let me just be silent a little, just because of our cultural setting. So because of these cultural, how do I put it, disadvantage that the girl child have been experiencing all these years. So we can still say that up till now, even in some regions of the country, we still have the girl child being disadvantaged.
Well, that's
not
the
being
gist,
exposed, not having the equal access that the male child as to, education.
I wouldn't like to dwell so much on this matter, but we must look at the flip side of it. Perhaps because of the advocacy, perhaps because of the sensitization, it seems we are not having the flip side of this problem.
Yeah.
And then you now find concentration on the girl child. You find this program, girl child. That other program, girl child. And then that's at the expense of the male child, forgetting that it's a male child that's not well trained will marry a girl child that's well trained, and then that's a problem. So how do we correct that imbalance that's coming from a corrected imbalance?
Yeah. So the focus still has to be on the girl child.
At the expense of the boy child?
Yes, let's go to data. Even recent data shows that we still have less girls in schools compared to the boy child. And so that means for equality, for a balance, we still have to help the girl child to come to a balance or to an equal level with the male child.
All right,
so, yeah, so we still have to do more of advocacy, more of encouragement, sensitization
towards a balance.
Yes,
in any
towards
case.
yes,
How well is Nigerian education
and then
faring?
if you even take it further, you also see in secular life, in organizations, you still find few female faces.
Really?
So and then so there's a need to also start from the basic, from the home.
Okay.
Start encouraging them so that we have that balance we are clamoring for.
Okay, maybe I should start from what Sandra was trying to say. It says, are we doing this advocacy at the detriment of the boy child? Should it be something we do at the detriment of the boy child? Because some are also advocating now that it should just be education for all so that we can create a balance.
Yes, I actually believe there should be a balance. But let me follow your statement, and I want to agree with you on that because this advocacy has to be balanced. It has been the girl child, why we are clamoring for this equality, or let me just say this balance, this equal balance or representation. At the same time, if we look at it, we also need to do a little more on the boy child, because it's a society where you have the female and the male, and we have interactions. So if the girl is socially, is developed, well educated, and then you have the male child who has a little, who is not measuring up, sort of, it will actually reflect on the girl child. Looking at the problems we have in the society today, I'm sorry to say, moving around the streets, you find more of this boy child on the streets. You find them in smuggling, you find them in theft, you find them in robbery and some other things, in drugs and other things. And if we also neglect them, I believe it will not help the society. Because even when the female child grows up and then intends to marry, she might likely fall in the hands of this undeveloped, or let me just say uncared for male child. And that will create a problem for the society. So my take is that let it be both sides. But why we do more for the girl child?
Well, looking at the development in the education sector, especially in the past year, with the benefit of hindsight now projecting into the new year, can we say that there are still much ground to be covered? What are these grounds to be covered in ensuring functional education system in Nigeria? Functional education system.
More has to be covered. If you look at the infrastructure we have in our schools, they are all dilapidating, and then there's a need for a kind of renovation and then rebuilding, rebranding. And then with this present government, we want to thank the president of this, the government of Ashwaju Bola Ahmed, with this student loan coming in, because one of the major problems we have in the educational sector is funding, and the funding has been from the federal government mainly. Let's put it like that. Though the state too take a percentage, and then the local government, but we cannot leave it alone for the government alone. We still need to look up to other sources. Like parents also can come up. That I actually want to subscribe to the issue of at least introducing some form of, even as tuition, might not be so high, but a little in public schools, so that there could be more income coming into the sector, because if you look at the federal government, they fund, like, provide the facility, support the system, like, the faculties, the teachers who are in the universities or in the secondary school, they pay the salaries, they do the buildings, they buy books and some other things that will be needed by the students. So parents also should come up. Organizations, even international organizations, should come to support the government by coming in with grants or scholarships, and then institutionalizing some form of funding in schools, even right from the primary schools to up to the tertiary level, so that this will support the government to provide quality education to the citizens.
All right. So last year in some of the newspapers, we got a report that the NEF fund too is getting further reforms to cover some courses and not for all students anymore. Is this doing justice to the education system? I mean, as some people might not be in choice courses that fall within the coverage of the loan, will this not affect them in getting educated?
Yes, that's why we need more information in that aspect. Actually, if you look at the country, all we need to do is look at our problems, and then look at how we can provide solutions to these problems. And then, government has plans. They have long-term and they have short plans. And in trying to develop this country, we look at what do we need to do. We need to get let me just put it as students more skilled, in some trades that we are finding not available again, and that can also get them to be like, so it is better that we encourage our young ones, to go into those courses that will help the country in future. So we should be looking at our future as a country and what we need, and then how we can also market, because human capacity is another aspect of income for the country. So how can we market ourselves at the international market? So that is why you have that. So we should, as parents or society, we should encourage our young ones into going into those courses that will develop the country and that will help us at the international level.
Now, how do we deal with the issues that are now becoming menace, as it were, in the education sector? For instance, the public arena, you find incessant industrial action. You find paucity, and I use the word carefully, paucity of, not even funds now, paucity of personnel. No thanks to the brain drain, popularly called JAPA syndrome now. So how do we deal with these issues so that 2025 could be a better year for the Nigerian education sector? How do we go about that?
I think that problem is general and it is global. Not only in Nigeria, just like one of our former ministers said, you see the Indians also drifting to developed worlds. You see some Chinese also drifting to the developed worlds.
In fact, Indians are almost becoming nationals in Canada.
In other countries. So it is not only with Nigeria, but what I will say is that the government is trying. I wouldn't because it's like there is so much to be covered or to be done by the government. We have left everything for the government, and because you go to this developed world, you see that most schools are not owned by the government. They are privately owned. They manage themselves. So, and then this issue of personnel drifting, the JAPA syndrome, I want to say the educational sector is even more or most affected, because in all universities now, hardly will you find junior lecturers. Immediately they have an opportunity to travel for a PhD, a postgraduate program, they don't really want to come back. And you don't want to blame them, because of the economic situation down here will not favor them based on what they will be earning and to sustain their family. And this is a period, it is a phase, and we are going to get over it. But as much as possible, we should do things that it's about having facilities. When you don't have the facility to work with and you are back, you are just from a developed country where you can get into your lab, do this and that, and here you come, you don't have funds, you don't even have power supply, you cannot run your labs, you can't do anything. It becomes so difficult, you become redundant. So definitely, you may not be encouraged to come back. But what I will say is that we'll keep supporting the government and then advocating that things get better, and then we have a conducive environment for these young ones to stay back or to come back. Let me just put it like that, to stay back so that they won't travel abroad, and then so even for those who are there to even come back home and give what they have acquired in terms of skills back to the country.
Professor Jagumi, I think I love your optimism, but can I suggest, and carefully so, if you think it could be a way out, shouldn't government look at cutting cost of governance? How about maintaining a slim cabinet against what we have currently, almost 50 ministers? What are we doing with that? Can't you also look at the diversification into technology that could do many of the things that we now have many ministers, many commissioners doing? Can't we also look at dealing with all this duplicity of functions?
Thank you. I would not want to speak about governance. I'm sorry to say, but I would just advocate that more funding should be provided for the educational sector.
Perhaps we get the funding from trimming the size of cabinets we run in Nigeria.
Yes, I don't know how the government would want to do it, but mine is that let there be more focus, like we have in developed countries, more focus in advancing technology, more focus in developing our youth. Yes, because looking around, we know that we have the capacity. God